before we get started on this here, are there any questions over any of the assignments? Yes. So what we were talking about Friday is equations of a line. And we have two main forms. First one is slope-intercept, which comes in the form of y equals mx plus b, and our point slope form, which is our y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And we use point slope form majority of the time if we have a point and the slope. Now, slope-intercept form is actually the main way we write most equations of line, most that we want written. And we go to it first if we have the slope and the y-intercept. Even if we're given a point or 2 points, we'll start out in slope-intercept form or point-slope form, and then rewrite it in slope-intercept form. That's where we're mostly going to end up, is slope-intercept form. So the first one we're looking at today is going to be this problem here. The graph shows the distance Allison hikes in X hours. Write an equation of a line and interpret the slope. How long does it take Allison to hike 14 miles traveling at the same rate? So again, we need to write the equation of a line, we need to interpret the slope, and then we need to see how long it's going to take her to travel 14 miles. And always with these here, a lot of these here, a good place to start is finding the slope, since it wasn't told to us. Now we're specifically given a point and kind of not specifically given the second, but we do have 2 points. What's one of the y values? Well, 24.5 is the point they gave us, yes? So we can use its y value first. And since its y value went first for that point, its x value has to go first on bottom. So 24.5 will go on top, 7 will go on bottom. What's our other point? Yeah. 0, 0. Now from here we can do it in 2 ways. One, we can do it by hand. 24.5 minus 0 is 24.5. 7 minus 0 is going to be 7. Now at this point here we can't leave it as 24.5 over 7, mainly because we cannot have a fraction and a decimal in the same expression. 24.5 over 7 is 3.5, or 7/2. Now it really doesn't matter how we rewrite it. If we are graphing or wanting to graph the equation, leaving it as a fraction helps because it does give us our rise over run. If we're just writing an equation, fraction or decimal both work. Both are fine. So when we plug it in, so the 7 on bottom, when we plug it in, we need the 7 on bottom because we're saying it's 24.5 divided by 7. Interestingly enough, 24.5 divided by 7 is 3/2, 3.5. As a mixed or an improper fraction, it ends up being 7/2. So it feels like the 7 jumps from the bottom to the top, but it really doesn't. It's just when we divide 24.5 by 7, we get 3.5. 3.5 as a fraction is 7/2. So yes, it looks like the 7 jumped from the bottom to the top, but it doesn't. That's a good question, because I noticed that on Friday. It seemed like it just jumped, but it doesn't. We ready to interpret the slope? So our y values on top, the 7 is corresponding to our distance in miles. The x, the denominator is referring to time in hours. So we could say for every 2 hours, she hikes what? 7 miles. It takes her 2 hours to hike 7 miles. She hikes 7 miles every 2 hours. She hikes 3.5 miles per hour. Any way that we describe it, as long as we're saying the same thing, that's all that matters. So we've interpreted the slope, we're good there. Now we need to write the equation of the line. Now the big thing that determines for me which of the two I start with is looking at what they gave us. Because at this point we have the slope and we need it in either equation. But do we have the y-intercept? Do we know where it crosses the y-axis? Do we know the point where x is 0? Well, yes, we have 0, 0, yep. So that tells me that the b value, our y-intercept, is 0. Since I have the y-intercept, we can use our y equals mx plus b. Where m is our slope, so y equals 7/2 x, plus our b-intercept, 0. But we really don't need the plus 0, it doesn't add anything. So really our equation is just y equals 7/2 x. Questions on this here? Now let's just say you don't need to write this down, but let's say I decided not to use that. I decided to just solve it in point slope form. We'll use the point negative, or our 24.5 for y. And 7 for x. So we take that point and plug it in. Now after we plug it in, we do need to get the y by itself. So the first thing we can do is multiply through the right-hand side. 7/2 times x is going to be 7/2 x. Now 7/2 times 7, 7/2 times 7 is 49/2. Now, we have a decimal already on the right-hand side. Might be nice for calculation to have a decimal on the left, 24.5. Or right-hand side, left-hand side, we need them to match up because we need to get y by itself. So the last thing we're going to do is be adding 24.5 to both sides. Because on the left-hand side, the negative 24.5 plus 24.5 will cancel, getting us y by itself like we wanted. We still have the 7/2 x. 24.5 minus 24.5, these all also cancel, give us 0, telling us that y equals 7/2 x, which is the exact same equation we had, yes? So it doesn't matter which one we do, it just is very nice if I notice the fact that the y-intercept is 0, we can kind of jump straight to that equation. We don't have to go through the calculations. However, if we don't see that, we can still do point slope form and get the same equation. Last part of this problem. We need to figure out how long it takes Allison to hike 14 miles, traveling at the same rate. Anybody have a guess? It'll be 4 hours. For every 2 hours, she hikes 7 miles. Do it one more time. 4 is equal to 14. Or, we know that the miles is y, so 14 is equal to 7/2 x. To solve this here, we can divide both sides by 7/2. 7/2 x divided by 7/2. 7/2 divided by itself is 1. So really what we're looking at is 14 over, not 7/3, 7/2. Tells us it is 4. It takes 4 hours. Kind of we got it from the slope. For every 2 hours she travels 7 miles. So if we double, or we multiply the number of miles by 2 to get 14, we multiply time by 2 to get 14. Questions on this here? Two prom venues charge a rental fee plus a fee per student. The table shows the total cost for the different number of students at Lakeside Inn. The total cost Y in dollars for X students at Sunview Resort is represented by this equation. Which venue charges less per student, and how many students must attend for the totals to be the same? So we have only 2 questions here. One, we need to know which one charges more per student, and then we need to figure out which one, or how many students must attend for the totals to be the exact same. So Sunview, y equals 10x plus 600. I'll just call it Lake. We don't know. We have one of the equations already, yes? Y equals 10x plus 600, yes? What is the 10 telling me from that there? It is the slope. Almost, because it is related to students, yes? Because x would be our number of students, but 10 is telling me the price per student, the cost. So for one student attended, it'd be 10 bucks plus our 600. 600 is our starting amount, the venue fee, how much it's going to cost just to go. And then we're going to have to figure out how much it's going to be with how many students go. So we have that. We know how much Sunview is charging, but do we know how much Lakeside Inn is charging per student? Well, no, we need to figure that out. And to figure that out, we're going to find it by finding the slope. Because as more students attend, it means we're paying more per student. The amount that's changing is not so much the overall cost, the starting cost to go there. It's changing based off of how many students attend. So we can use that to figure out the slope, the cost per student. Now, they gave us 5 points, or x comma y. Pick one of those y values. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter which one. 1800. Since we picked 1800 as the y value, we have to pick its corresponding x, which is 125. Because whichever y value goes first, its corresponding x has to go first. We have to keep it together as the same point. Give me another y value. 2400. And we have to take its corresponding x value, which is 175. Really, for this here, we just need to pick one of the y values, match it up with its corresponding x, pick another y value, its corresponding x. Out of the 5 points, after we pick one we could use any of the other four. It does not matter. The only one we cannot pick is the point itself. We can't just use 1800 minus 1800 over 125 minus 125. There is no slope. That's just a point. Now from here, we can do one of two things. We can plug it in a calculator, or we can do it by hand. If we do this by hand, 1800 minus 2400 seems like a massive calculation to try to do in our head, yes? What if I told you 18 minus 24? Exactly, it'd be negative 6, because we're subtracting smaller from bigger. So it would be 6, yes? Well, we still have the, so 1800 minus 2400 would be negative 600. 125 minus 75, we know it's going to have to be negative. Almost 50. Negative divided by negative is a positive. They both have a 0. They both have a factor of 10. We can get rid of it to start with. So negative 6 or 60 divided by 5 is 12. So that tells me that the slope is 12, yes? Now, realistically, we could already answer the first part, because it asks which venue charges less per student. In terms of equations of lines, which line has the smaller slope? Because Sunview slope is what? 10. We said Lakeside is 12. So Sunview is charging 10 per student. Lakeside is charging 12, yes? So which one charges less per student? Sunview charges less. Or really, we could just say Sunview, because I know on your homework we're going to be saying Sunview charges less. Sunview is the one that charges less per student. Okay. Now we need to figure out how many students must attend for the total cost to be the same, yes? Now there's many different ways we can do it. One of them is guess and check. In that I have several numbers here. I could start, just plug 100 into our the equation for Sunview and see, do I get the same amount, and go through that there. That's not a bad way to do it. It's just a lot of work. The other way is we can finish finding the equation for Lakeside Inn. Now, this time they did not give us the y-intercept. We don't know what the initial starting is. They didn't give us a 0.0 comma some value. So we need to actually use our point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, where y1 and x1 is just a point. Pick a y value. Doesn't matter which, we just need one of them. 1500. Since we picked 1500, it means our x has to be 100. We're just taking that point, 100 comma 1500. Now we just need to get y by itself. Now I didn't say it on the last one, but really we look and make sure, are there any double negatives? For this here, that's not going to happen. Because if we had y minus a negative 1500, negative negative makes a positive. X minus negative 100, negative negative makes a positive. If we have that double negative anywhere, at this point it's good to go on and fix it, make it positive first. But after we do that, we don't have to do that here. We're going to distribute that 12. 12 times x is 12x. 12 times 100 is 1200. We finished doing that. Now we need to get y by itself. We can add 1500 to both sides because negative 1500 plus 1500 would be 0. That does give us y by itself. We still have our 12x. But negative 1200 plus 1500, 15 minus 12 is 3. So we have 300. Now to solve, what we're really trying to figure out is how many students must attend for the total cost to be the same, yes? Total cost, our cost, is that our x or our y? It's our y value, isn't it? So we're looking for where the y value for this here, this y, is the same as this y, yes? So if those y values are the same, it must mean that our 10x plus 600 needs to equal 12x plus 300, because we're looking for them to be equal to each other. And what that means is that we can take 12x plus 300 and set it equal to 10x plus 600. Now we just need to solve for x. First thing I would look for is any of our order of operations. We don't have any parentheses, nothing being multiplied that we need to reduce, simplify on either side. So now we need to work on getting x by itself. What could we do first? Because we have 4 options. At this point, we're trying to move things from one side to the other. We need the x's on one side, numbers on the other, yes? So one option is that we could subtract 300 from both sides, yes? Because that'll move the 300. Or we could subtract 600 from both sides. Or we could subtract 10x, or we could subtract 12x. It doesn't matter what we do. Because if we say we subtract 10x from both sides, on the right-hand side, 10x minus 10x would be 0, leaving us with 600. We still have the 300 on the left-hand side. We haven't touched it. 12x minus 10x. X's are on one side, yes? Is the x by itself? No, what do we need to do? Minus 300. The 300 minus 300 would be 0, leaving us with 2x. 600 minus 300, 6 minus 3 is 3, so we have 300. Is x by itself? What do we need to do? Yeah, divide by 2. 2x divided by 2 is x. 300 divided by 2. 30 divided 150. How many? ENTS. So for the total cost to be the same, we would need 150 students. Questions on this here? If we had 150 students going to prom, would it be better to go to Sunview or Lakeside? Or does it matter? Well, with 150 students, we just said what? The costs were the same. So does it matter? No. And realistically, I would say even like if we had 152 students, Lakeside would be more expensive. Because 12 times 152 plus 300 for Lakeside, we would be at $2,124. 10 times 152 plus 600. So for Sunview, we would be at 2,120 bucks. Even though at this point Lakeview is more expensive, does it really matter? Numbers wise, yes, this is more expensive. We should go with the cheaper option, but $4. I would say at this point it's negligible. Either one, we're still good. Now, as we get closer to, say, 200, 2,700, okay, now we're starting getting into the realm of it's starting to make a difference. $100 is still not a big deal, but when we start getting closer to 500 to 1,000, it's going to make a big difference. Kind of make sense? I'd say within reason, they're close enough, but questions on how we did this? Feel pretty good with this so far? What if Maple Ridge charges a rental fee of $10 per student? The total cost is $1,900 for 140 students. Describe the number of students who must attend for the total cost of Maple Ridge to be less than the total cost at the other two venues. Well, we have these two here. Probably should have called them S of X and L of X, Sunview and Lakeside. Might be helpful for us to actually find the equation. Now, the one thing it told us is that the fee per student, our slope is 10. They also told us that for 140 students, it costs $1,900. So we can use that as a point. We plug 140 in for X1, 190 in for Y1. Now we just need to solve for Y. We need to get that equation. Y minus 1,900 is fine, no double negatives, nothing we need to fix there. Same with our X minus 140. So really the first thing we can do is distribute the 10. 10 times X is 10X. 10 times negative 140 would be negative 1,400. Now we just need to get Y by itself, yes? And how can we do that? We can add 1900 to both sides. Negative 1400 plus 1900, negative 14 plus 19 would be plus 500. You don't have to rewrite it underneath the other two. I'm just going to write it there. Out of these three, we don't have to include Sunview in the calculations at all. Mainly because if we look at Sunview and Maple, their slopes are the same, yes? And the starting cost for Sunview is 600. Starting view for Maple, we found out, is to be 500, yes? Even if we had 0 students, the starting cost is already less, yes? And covered in Algebra 1, covered it some in geometry, if the slopes are the same, those two lines are parallel. Parallel lines never cross, never intersect. So is there any way that Maple can somehow get more expensive than Sunview? No, because for them to get more expensive, for it to go from less to more, at some point it's got to cross that line. You do not need to write this. Because if I went about solving it, (10x equals 10x minus 100). Zero equals 10x. No solution because they do not cross, they don't intersect. Doesn't work. We can't find a value of that. So really the only two we're looking at are Lakeside and Maple. And we can do the exact same thing we did on the last one. We can take the 10x plus 500 and set it equal to our 12x plus 300. And solve for our value of x. What can we do first? Minus 500. We're going to subtract 500. 500 minus 500 is 0, leaving us with 10x. We still have the 12x. 300 minus 500, 3 minus 5 would be negative 200. Then we would got to minus the 12x. Because we did get the constant terms, our numbers without x on one side, so now we need to move the x's. 12x minus 12x is 0, leaving us with our negative 200 on the right-hand side. 10x minus 12x, almost, negative 2. 10 minus 12 would be negative 2. Lastly, we would divide both sides by negative 2. Negative 2x divided by negative 2 would just be x. Negative 200 divided by negative 2, the negative and negative would make a positive, so 200 divided by 2, 100. So describe the number of students that must attend for the total cost at Maple Ridge to be less than the total cost of the other two. If a question like this was on the ACT, they gave us the information about the two venues, figuring out the total cost, I will guarantee you that 100 students would be an answer. It is not the right answer. Because at 100 students, Maple Ridge Make sure Maple Ridge and Lakeside are the same. Because it's asking how many students must attend for Maple to be less than the other two. We need what? Not 100, but 101 students. Maple to be cheaper. Because Maple starts off more expensive. At 100, they're the same. At 101, Maple is now cheaper. Because this one kind of threw a little wrench in there. It's not asking for them to be the same. It's asking when it's cheaper. So we need to go one more past it. Now, we don't have to worry about decimals because when we talk about students, students are whole numbers, not decimals. We're not talking about the average U.S. household. We're talking about whole numbers because we're talking about people. I don't know if you all get that joke because the average U.S. household has 3.5 children. It's average. It's so funny. I'm like, okay. Yeah, I think it's just based off they either had 3 or 4, and it ended up evening out to a decimal statistics. But this makes sense. Now, I'm not going to worry about line of best fit. But that is it for 1.4, 3 through 9 and 11. So if you look at the homework assignment, so 3 through 9, all it's asking you to do is to find the slope. So use the graph of the line and interpret the slope. So write an equation of the line, interpret the slope. We're not asking for anything beyond that. We're not asking to solve for any values. We need to find the equation of the line and write out what the slope is in words for 3 through 8. Number 9 is kind of like what we just did with the prom venues. Number 11. Number 11. Identify the error and correct it. I will tell you this right now. There is something wrong either A, in their explanation, so the text or the words at the bottom of the graph, or something they did in their approach. So you need to, 1, say what they did wrong or kind of how they got to a wrong equation, and 2, fix it. So if we looked at, say, problem 12, the slope is 3, so the income is $3 per hour. Well, I would go through and figure out what the equation of the line is. So slope would be 33 minus 0. X would be, on bottom would be 3 minus 0, so it'd be 33 over 3. So the slope is 11. They used the X value to try to find the slope. They just said the slope is 3. Slope's not 3. Slope is 11. So the income should be $11 per hour. So they found the incorrect slope. We found the correct slope. We fixed the statement. Does that kind of make sense? Those can be tricky, and if you're not sure how to approach it, go on and solve, kind of see what they're talking about, solve it yourself, and then compare.